So from time to time, I get asked questions in the comments from viewers of the channel, and some of these questions, I really have to sit there and think hard about what I would want in said scenario that they're asking. And when those questions are really interesting enough that it sparks an idea for a video, well then I do just that. And a few days ago, I received this question from Kyle Williams. Now, mind you, this was before the Bulls' two most recent games in which they won. It was after the Nets win and heading into the upcoming week. And the question was, what if I could hypothetically tell you, if we miss the playoffs, we get the top 4 pick. In other words, the pick protection that we have on this year's first rounder that we traded to the Orlando Magic. Would you rather have that pick or make it to the playoffs so that our players get that experience? And because it really piqued my interest, that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So if you don't know, the Chicago Bulls traded for Nikola Vucevic. They not only traded Wendell Carter Jr. and Otto Porter, but also 2 future first-round picks in 2021 and 2023, both of which are top 4 protected, meaning if said picks ultimately fall into the top 4, the Bulls would get to keep their picks. So the question from Kyle is, well, if the Bulls were to miss the playoffs, meaning they would be a lottery team, they would have a chance at a top 4 pick. If it was guaranteed that it would fall in the top 4, which of course could never be guaranteed, but let's say it was, because this is hypothetical. If it fell into the top 4, would I prefer to keep this pick or rather make the playoffs? The reason this one is so hard is because this year's draft class is pretty stacked, or at least it's reported to be stacked. I mean, we were also told that the 2014 draft class was going to be stacked with the likes of Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker being future superstars, and they've been anything but that. But be that as it may, the draft class has expectations, this one anyway, especially the consensus #1 pick in Cade Cunningham, who, by the way, is a 6'8" point guard, which we all know the Bulls need a point guard. And how about a big point guard at that? Kind of reminds you of someone like LaMelo Ball. Now, I asked Kyle a follow-up question, well, could it be guaranteed that it would be the #1 pick if we missed the playoffs? Because in that case, that is pretty enticing for me to say it's almost worth missing the playoffs for a guy like Cade Cunningham, who has future star potential. And of course he said, no dude, only a top 4 pick. It might be the #1 pick, and it could also be the #4 pick. And of course, that makes the question that much more challenging. But look, here's my stance on all of this, and I've mentioned this before, but let me go into it in a little more depth. The Bulls need to make the playoffs. They absolutely need to make the playoffs this season, because as much as Kyle has given me this hypothetical scenario here, it's unlikely the Bulls are going to get a top 4 pick, right? Based on the current standings, if they were to miss it and missing the playoffs after trading for a guy like Vucevic and getting these complementary pieces in Tice and Brown Jr., missing the playoffs would be a disappointment because the Bulls have an opportunity to get these young guys some playoff experience, to build off on going into next season. It gives them some national exposure and attention to show that they are an up-and-coming team with 2 All-Stars, which makes attracting and recruiting other talent that much easier. I mean, it's going to be hard to draw a big name to the Bulls if they're a lottery team yet again. Even if it meant, like Kyle mentioned, that it was guaranteed a top 4 pick. Big names don't care about a rebuilding team with future star potential. No, they want to go to a team that has established players and are ready to contend now. And that's why Artur's made this trade. He's signaling to the league, we're looking to compete now. We're looking to build around Lavine and Vucevic and an up-and-coming star player in Patrick Williams. We're not looking to build through the draft. We want to attract and recruit players who are coming here to help this team win now and build for the future. Or I guess I should say not build for the future. On top of that, as a selfish fan, I want to see my team in the playoffs. After a number of disappointing seasons in which we tanked, I want to see my team be relevant again. I want to see my team back on the map. I want to see my team be the historic franchise it once was in the 90s. By missing the playoffs yet again, you're setting this team back on building for next season. Because even if the Bulls do very well, say by bringing in another quality player or 2 to put alongside Lavine and Vucevic, and you do make the playoffs next season, well, none of these guys have playoff experience needed to make a deep run. Not all, but most of them. And I'm not saying they can't, do well in the playoffs and playing in a series, but we've seen time and time again in the NBA that even a great young talented team going into their first playoff series and competing at the highest level, they struggle. And that's because the playoffs are a different beast. You don't see teams come into the playoffs for the first time for most players and they just dominate and make a deep run. No, teams that have a roster that is comprised of mostly players who haven't been to the playoffs come in as an 8, 7, or 6 seed, and they get beaten up and eliminated in the first round, and then they come back next season even stronger and know what to expect. And that's what the Bulls need this season. I'm not expecting, them to make it beyond the first round, although that would be amazing, but they need to have their first playoff experience to get kicked around and know what it means to compete at the highest level in basketball, and then come back next season with hopefully another star level player or even just some additional talent and make a deep run from there. Zach Lavine, as good as he is, has 0 playoff experience. Lauri Markkanen, Coby White, Patrick Williams, all 0 playoff experience. Even Vucevic, he has some playoff experience, but not that much, as the Magic never made a deep run in the playoffs when he was there. Satoransky, Garrett Temple, Thaddeus Young all have some playoff experience, but it's not significant. Thad being, the one that has the most experience. So it's very critical that these guys make the playoffs, get some exposure and experience at that level. They're not going to make a run at the title, we all know that, but it's a stepping block to get them towards contention in the right direction. It gives the guys experience and also gives them exposure to the rest of the league to attract and recruit other talent. So a very long answer to your question, Kyle, but I would say no, I would not prefer the Bulls to miss the playoffs, even if it meant that it would be guaranteed a top 4 pick. It is enticing because it could mean the number 1 pick, which again, I think Cade Cunningham is a future star talent, and the Bulls, of course, could absolutely use a big point guard that is a great floor general. But unless it's would you rather miss the playoffs if it meant getting the number 1 pick, then no, I'm passing and saying no. I would rather make the playoffs, even if it means getting beat up in the first round for all the reasons I just explained. And you guys also know me, I'm a firm believer in that the draft, the NBA draft, is a crapshoot, and you never know which player and their potential, in college and high school, which one is actually going to turn into a star in the NBA. That even goes for the number 1 pick, because even some like Wiggins, who everyone wanted to be tanking for, because he was viewed as being a future superstar, a future franchise player. Well, look at him now, a decent player, but he hasn't made even 1 All-Star appearance. But that's just my opinion, though. I want to know what you guys think. Would you guys prefer it if it meant the Bulls would be guaranteed the top 4 pick? If they miss the playoffs, would you rather them miss the playoffs to keep that pick, or would you rather the Bulls make it and get some of these guys some experience and exposure on the national scene? Let me know in the comments. I'll likely put out a community poll for this as well. Shout out to Kyle for asking this question that sparked the video idea, and also for supporting the channel, as I know you're pretty active in the comments in general. Don't forget, the Bulls have a game tonight in a back-to-back taking on the Hawks. I'll have a live group chat for that as always. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again, as always, guys, for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one.